So Dee, can you say something more about the sort of case management issues that you need to think about when you're starting work with a client?
When you begin, it's important to have that contract about what the client's expectations are, being client-led as to what they've come about. And it may be that what they've come about isn't appropriate, and we may need to point that out quite quickly. Maybe a good example of that is always remembering that we work primarily with relationships and relational issues. So if couples come and alcohol is an issue, it may be that they're appropriate for work. We can work with how that alcohol problems might be affecting their relationship. What we can't work with is the alcohol problem, and I think that's sometimes where we get into difficulties when counsellors begin to work, especially if that might be an area of their expertise outside of Relate. They might, we have heard people say, well, I deal with that in my day job, so I can deal with it in this job.
But it's whether they're the right client for Relate
for
as
Relate,
well.
That's right.
It sounds like there's a bit of a nuance there as well, because it's not just, is this a client we can work with? It's what's the goal of the work and the focus of the work within Relate.
Exactly.
So we wouldn't be working, in your example, we wouldn't be working on treating their alcohol issues, but we would look at the impact of the alcohol on the relationship.
And I think it's important to bear in mind things like, without getting dull and dry about it, service specifications, best practice documents, our policies and practice, because they underpin what our work at Relate is. And I think, yes, we are all counsellors, and I think it's easy in the room to think, yes, this couple need counselling, they've got an issue with this, but actually they may need counselling, but do they need counselling at Relate?
Sure.
Does it fit in with what we can offer them?
Yeah, and I think we particularly have that occurring where people have been sent to Relate, somebody's recommended Relate, so they've maybe gone to their GP and they've said, well, I think this is a relationship issue, and they've come to Relate, and yes, we'll agree to see them for the initial assessment, but I think it's being clear that during that initial assessment we are assessing whether they're suitable for Relate, but also for Relate at this time.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of people that we say, maybe you need to work on this particular issue elsewhere and then come back to us. But I think maybe, certainly the practice helpline calls we get sometimes, I think there's probably some counsellors who, because maybe they've had experience elsewhere, or because they feel if somebody's been sent to Relate, that means that we absolutely have to work with them.
Yeah.
And then we have problems sort of further down the line.
Exactly. I think again, we have to work with what we can, and it's about being clear. And I think sometimes we may not know that at the assessment session, and again, maybe contracting with some people to say, we can see you for, let's do a couple of sessions, let's see whether this is the real issue, let's bear in mind whether this is helpful.
Yeah, a second or third assessment session in our mind really to
can be helpful at times, as long as people are clear that's what it is. And I think often when we're talking about sort of domestic abuse and ISIs, individual structured interviews, that's the thing that clients sometimes complain, because they didn't know that this was part of an assessment process, and it is being clear that those ISIs are still part of an assessing process. They're not part of the ongoing work starting.
Yeah. Again, it's about managing expectations and being clear with clients, isn't it? Because I'm thinking of complaints we've had, clinical complaints we've had, where actually it's not about poor clinical practice as such, it's poor case management, where people have been led to think that they're getting something that we're not actually able to provide. I'm just thinking then about also when we contract, about we know that counselling is a time-limited, short-term intervention, but I'm just thinking how many clients we see who perhaps have never had counselling before and might think, well, actually, seeing this person once a week, it makes such a difference to our relationship. Why can't we come longer term?
Why can't we keep coming forever?
Well, yes, exactly. Yes. And, at some point we pull up the drawbridge and actually talk about endings or whatever.
Yes.
Now, if we've not actually introduced that early on, the idea that it is time limited, then that can be a huge shock for people.
We've encouraged a dependency, haven't we, from the beginning, and I think it is important to be clear. I mean, coming for work at Relate is about maybe starting the process for some people, and I think if people, again, come in with an expectation, I will keep coming till the moment everything is wonderful again, that might not be so, good enough is good enough, and starting a process.
Well, also it's often about helping to build the capacity, that actually people have developed some skills through coming to Relate and through working on their relationship that they can then apply to other problems that arise in a relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've had clients like that. I know that I have, where actually they feel that they've got the capacity within themselves by the end of the relate counselling, that they know that they could manage.
Yeah, and they
can
don't
manage
need
again.
to keep coming week after week just to make it right. Yeah.
But that's partly what we're saying is a responsibility of counsellors to be clear at the initial,
At the outset.
what we are and aren't offering.
Yeah.